Hi, Misha here, and it seemed a good time for another gun and model video. And this time I'm doing something a little different. For one thing, we're doing German, and for another, we're doing a model of a battleship, the Tirpitz, sister ship to the Bismarck. It's still considered a Bismarck class ship. That served the Kriegsmarine during the majority of World War II. And this is a 1/700 scale die-cast model from Forces of Valor. And to go along with it, a little bit anachronistic, but we have a German Navy Luger P.04, P.04. This is their variant. This is basically a reproduction gun, or scrubbed original. It's been refinished, but I think it's a reproduction from the 70s. But anyway, it gets the point across of the general shape of the Luger. And this actually dates to World War I, although, you know, there's very likely some might have still been in service during World War II. The Navy adopted the Luger before the Army. The Army called it the P.08 for 1908. The Navy called it the P.04 for 1904. They would originally order 8,000 before World War I, and then a total of another 23,000 would be ordered right before and during World War I, bringing the total to about 31,000 built. This really varies from the P.08 in just a few ways. It has a longer barrel. The standard P.08 has a 3.9 inch, so basically 4-inch barrel. This is a 5.9 inch, so basically 6-inch barrel. It also has a different style of rear sight that is adjustable to some extent. It's not like an artillery where it's really adjustable, but it has this thing you squeeze and pull back with 2 range settings. And much like the artillery Luger, these were commonly issued with shoulder stocks, and the idea was just to give a little more stability on board a deck that might be tossing at sea or, you know, whatnot. Early versions of the naval Luger would have grip safeties like a Swiss Luger, but later ones would not. Otherwise, it fired the standard 9x19 Parabellum round, had an 8-round magazine, wood grips, toggle system, you know, of a Luger. You know, otherwise the same. But it's a unique version used by the Navy. Production ended in 1917, and like I said, some would stay on. A lot were probably destroyed during the Treaty of Versailles after the war, just because of the barrel length and having a stock. That treaty mandated the German pistols had barrels under 4 inches, but pistols had a habit of slipping through, you know, kind of accidentally going home with people and then mysteriously turning up later in the 1930s when they were called back. Germany kind of had its own version of a gun buyback at that time. As for the Tirpitz, himself, and yes, it was referred to as his, not her. Along with the Bismarck, these are the 2 largest ships made for the Kriegsmarine for World War II. They were over 800 foot at the top, had a crew of 2,100 officers and men, had a total of 8 15-inch guns, had a dozen smaller 6-inch guns for kind of defensive work against destroyers, and a myriad of anti-aircraft guns all the way down to 37 millimeter and so on and so forth. When this ship launched, it had around 74 guns. After refits, it was 78. This was classified as a fast battleship. It could get up to 35 miles per hour. The Tirpitz was a little bit faster than the Bismarck. It could do about 35 and a half. The Bismarck was a little less than 35. It's because they had different engines installed. They both had 3 engines, but the Tirpitz had a little bit better. They were well armored, stable, very powerful for their day. They also had 3 Arado 196 observation aircraft on board, as well as many small boats and knees and whatnot. The Bismarck and Tirpitz were both, the construction began in 1936. The Bismarck that summer, the Tirpitz that fall. The Bismarck was ready in 1940, the Tirpitz in early 1941. The Bismarck had a very short career of only about 10 days. She did sink the HMS Hood and in turn was sunk by a concerted effort, including Swordfish from HMS Ark Royal and the battleship HMS Rodney, amongst many others. After that, the Nazis, Hitler specifically, were very cautious with the Tirpitz. It spent most of its career moored in a fjord in Norway. It was kind of used as a deterrent to threaten British convoys going to Russia. It did attack a few, but after a couple of close calls, they really became conservative with it, only using it on one major offensive raid against a British refueling island. But yeah, the Allies really wanted to get rid of this before D-Day. They launched several attacks, including using small midget submarines in September of 1943. Then the Royal Navy had several bombing raids against it between that time and the summer of 44. They did do major damage, but they never followed it up with kind of the kill shot. So to that end, the job of finally sinking the Tirpitz was given to the Royal Air Force, the RAF, in September of 44. And then on November 12, a flight of Lancasters, 32 of them, using the very potent Tallboy bomb, scored a couple of direct hits, including one on the magazine of the Tirpitz, and she sank very quickly. But unlike the Bismarck, where very few people survived, only about 115, you had well over 800 survivors of the Tirpitz. Still more than half the crew perished, but 800 is a lot better than 100. The Kriegsmarine was kind of interesting in World War II because they were about as apolitical as you could be in the German military. They were out at sea. They weren't involved in some of the other things, and so I found them more interesting, and there's a very fascinating story. You hear mostly about their U-boats, of course, which were much more effective and cost efficient than these huge ships. And the reason both the Bismarck and Tirpitz were basically failures, the Kriegsmarine and the German government really never knew what they wanted out of them. Should they be used for home defense? Should they be used for commerce raiding in the Atlantic? Should they be used for engaging battleships? What should we do? So, if there's anything designed by committee, there were a bunch of compromises. And to that end, there were some major flaws. In the end, basically, Germany built the Bismarck and the Tirpitz as symbols that they were now flaunting the Treaty of Versailles and even the Washington Treaty, and no longer adhering to tonnage limits, anything like that. It was much more of a political symbol, an intimidation symbol, than it was an actual effective machine of war. So it's a very fascinating history. I do have a video, quite a long one, on my personal channel over at Misha, where I go really into the history of the Bismarck and the Tirpitz, the development and all that. So if you're interested, check that out. These models here, the hull's metal, the turrets and stuff are plastic. They do move, the guns do elevate. Even the small guns on the side pivot, which is kind of neat. And they have pretty good detail on the deck. As far as the Navy Luger, a lot of people know about the artillery, and kind of rightfully so, but the Navy is often overlooked, and in a lot of ways I think it's neater. The barrel isn't so ridiculously long. 6 inches is a good length for 9mm, and the adjustable sight's much more practical with two simple settings. And even though this gun is basically an example piece without, anything to really recommend it collectible, it does show you the profile, the feel, and all that. So it's worth it for that. Anyway, yeah, we like just doing these model gun videos to kind of see what you're interested in. If you'd like to see more, let us know. Feel free to comment below. Please like, share, and subscribe, all that good stuff. And if you'd like to help support the channel so we can get to the range, please check out the link to our Patreon page. With that, this is Misha, and I'll catch you very soon next time.